is Wednesday, September 21st, 2011, and you are tuned in to the tip of the spear when it comes to alternative media and resistance to tyranny, defense of liberty. I am Alex Jones, the host of InfoWars Nightly News. I want to thank all of the subscribers to PrisonPlanet.tv and InfoWarsNews.com, as well as our extremely hardworking crew for the research and work they're doing. This is a team effort, and I want to thank all of you for being part of it. We are certainly developing the future of the new alternative media that is becoming the dominant media as the globalist corporate whore media recedes into history. We are also teleprompter free. We are big on research and very short on canned, package, fake, slick garbage. If you're looking for an info babe who looks like she can suck a golf ball through a garden hose, reading off a teleprompter telling you how great vaccines are or how great the Federal Reserve is, you found the wrong station. Or if you want some pompous globalist reading off a teleprompter telling you how great Obama is, you've got the wrong channel. I'm sorry. This is real news, real analysis, and real commentary, all fused together. It's InfoWars Nightly News. Now, coming up, we've got Dr. Andrew Wakefield in studio to talk about the giant Gardasil hoax and the fact that our population, not just here but worldwide, is becoming more and more brain damaged from the vaccines. Incredible breaking news with Dr. Andrew Wakefield coming up. And as promised, we're going to have an in-depth report on vaccines, population reduction, sterilants, autoimmune diseases, packaged in vaccines. That is all coming up tonight ahead of Dr. Andrew Wakefield joining us. There couldn't be a more important issue than we're going to cover tonight. We've been preparing in the last week for the information we're going to be presenting tonight and tomorrow night when Dr. Sherry Tenpenny joins us, because all over the United States and the world, places like South Korea, Mexico, India, you name it, Gardasil, Merck, is trying to go in and twist arms and buy off the politicians to force young girls to take this vaccine linked to all sorts of neurological disorders. But don't believe me. I'm going to be going to the CDC's own documents coming up, so stay with us. But first, I want to get into some economic news. The stock market went into free fall and lost more than 280 points today on word in the announcement of Ben Bernanke that he's going ahead with QE3, a third round of monetary easing, like the Germans did in Weimar Republic, a wheelbarrow of Deutschmarks to buy a loaf of bread, or what we've seen in Zimbabwe and Africa. And they have now come out and announced they're going ahead with QE3. The stock market plunged on that news. And now the IMF is saying that unless we see big changes coming up, we're going to see a huge problem. So the IMF basically called for QE3, and their little American frontman minion, their little poodle, Bernanke, jumped at that. Of course, 2 days ago, Infowars.com called it Operation Twist, Fed ready for QE3. As usual, we called it more than 48 hours before the Fed did. The markets, of course, were all anticipating what would he say. We actually went to what the IMF and World Bank had ordered him to do a week ago and told you what was going to happen before it was announced. Now, remember, just 2 months ago, in fact, we had to do this tomorrow night, point out that Bernanke promised there would be no QE3. And at that point, I said, there will be QE3. If they say zig, we zag. If they say up, we say down. If they say left, we say right. Because even when the truth will serve them, they lie. They are of their father. And of course, that would be Lord Rothschild. Shifting gears into Big Brother news, of course, now coffee cups all over the country are emblazoned with see something, say something, Homeland Security funded paranoia. And the NFL has announced they're going to be groping all 16 plus million fans as they go into the stadium. But I'm not talking about that. No, we're getting into OnStar, profits from spying. Now, I was given this information 12 years ago by a OnStar General Motors engineer. And they told me, they said, Alex, the federal government is dialing in and listening to the cell phone system that basically OnStar is based on. And then years later, it did come out that without warrants, they are tracking everyone. And we just showed you directly from OnStar, the fact sheet, the terms and conditions sheet they're sending out to members, and they're telling them, we're going to give your location and your speed and everything you do to the feds, to local police. We're going to give it to insurance companies. There's no Fourth Amendment. There's no nothing, because you've contracted with us. What do you think General Motors, now owned by the federal government, was going to do with a bug in tens of millions of automobiles? But it gets worse. They tell you in the terms and conditions. You can go read these online at General Motors' website, and it's in other cars as well. They tell you in there that even if you opt out, we're still going to listen to you. You've got to have them remove it. Now, I remember 10 years ago buying a Tahoe and telling them that I wanted it removed, and them laughing at me, saying they would never do that. Well, that's more BS. It's time to stop being so naive. It's time to wake up. It's time to get angry. It's time to realize what's happening. It was in USA Today 6 years ago that when you order a pizza from any of the big chains, they run you through a criminal database and get paid up to 25% of fines and fees when you get arrested for a warrant. Okay? Every major globalist corporation is involved in this illegal spying. And it has nothing to do with protecting us from criminals. The criminals are running the system. Here's the Register newspaper. GM OnStar cars will upload all data unless owners opt out. It's coming. Your car will rat on you to insurers. Hey, good job, Register, but get it straight. It says you've got to actually take the system out. Opting out does not work. Okay, read the fine print. Get that straight. Here is another one. OnStar's new Orwellian terms and conditions. What do you think Facebook says? It's a government front. So's Google. They call their users dumb effers. New OnStar privacy policy expands on data sharing. Oh, nice little word. Data sharing for spying on everybody. Totally disgusting. OnStar begins spying on customers' GPS location for profit. And of course, here are the terms and conditions. If you're out there watching, don't live in denial. Go read the terms and conditions, okay? It's always been set up for that. Google 5 years ago put out a press release and admitted that they're using the cameras and microphones on board if you have a Google dashboard, and they're watching you inside your house. Just like Philadelphia schools said they're watching kids in the showers at home. Okay? We're not in Kansas anymore. We're in the New World Order. Get angry. Get upset. Okay, I'm sorry. I shouldn't get upset. The government loves us. And then here's some whitewash article. Report, OnStar allegedly spying on customers can sell customers' GPS location to third parties. It's in the stinking privacy statement. Tired of it, man. I'm tired of the denial. Wait a minute, you're getting upset. We're not supposed to get upset. We're supposed to just go over to the edge of the New World Order. Okay, before I get into the whole Gardasil situation and the history of vaccines and why cancer doubles and triples, and 50 years ago, no kids ever had cancer, and it was incredibly rare. Now it's everywhere. Before I get into all that, I want to get into this report here. This report right here, a nice boil down from the American Dream blog with links to the World Health Organization and other mainline systems. Billions spent on a cure for cancer, yet cancer rates continue to explode. Continue to explode. And you go through these numbers. Oh, in the U.S., we did have 640,000 back in the 1980s a year of breast cancer. Now we have 1.6 million. That's almost a tripling. And it goes through the fact that there's been a doubling in worldwide cancers in the last decade, just like diabetes, and the most common type of diabetes. This is from the World Health Organization. We got 12.7 million cases in 2008, and the UN is estimating that that's going to double. And again, we have that report up at Infowars.com. It's going to double again. Billions spent on a cure for cancer, and yet cancer rates continue to explode. This is a detailed report. You need to go read it at Infowars.com if you want to get the full details. Now I want to look at the biggest rollout of propaganda and authoritarian action we've seen in a long time from Big Pharma dealing with Gardasil. And I will not apologize for getting angry about this. We're being lied to. We're being propagandized. We're being sold a hoax, a lie. And I'm going to get to that information in a moment. But first, I want to roll some video for viewers of even mainstream government documents, mainstream news, video clips, you name it, of the history of secret testing on the American people, on the European population, and on Brits and others. Our own government, going back into the 1920s and 30s under a program called eugenics, has been testing chemicals and biologicals on the population. 30-plus states by 1933 were forcibly sterilizing people who were making bad grades in school. Hitler adopted this system, and their Nuremberg defense was that they got it from the United States. You know about Tuskegee and injecting black men with syphilis. You know about Porton Down, testing chemical and biological weapons on their own troops and killing them in England. The same thing has been done in the United States. 4,000 plus, this is all public, foster children in the U.S. were radiated to death in the 1940s and 50s. They took foster children and radiated them to death. They put children in literal bakers and killed them on the spot with high-powered radiation, but those were the lucky ones. Others went through more. They were given lower amounts to watch their teeth fall out, their intestines liquefy, their blood running out of their eyes. Go read the congressional testimony of this. Why did the government do this? Because we're seen as lab rats, we're seen as animals, and they're creating cadres of people, medical doctors that work for the Pentagon and others who will do this. Of course, they had tens of thousands of troops in hundreds of tests where they would drop hydrogen and atomic bombs within just a few miles of the troops, and then have them march along with farm animals they led along and drove into the cloud on trucks into the explosions. They had pilots fly through it. And my dad, many years ago, was talking to an old Army scientist when he was a child, and he said, "Why didn't they use monkeys?" And the fellow said to my dad, "Son, troops are a lot cheaper than damn monkeys." And that's it right there. These are cold-blooded people that don't care about you and your family. Now, the ringworm children, this isn't just America. The U.S. government paid the equivalent of $3 billion in adjusted money from the 1950s into the 1960s to the Israelis. This is on record, to radiate 110,000 children. They told them you're going to a dental appointment, or they told them you're going to get treated for fungal infections, and they would radiate them. More than 20,000 were killed on the spot. Others were given different dosages of the radiation. And then, of course, there's Project Shad, many other programs where they've sprayed chemicals, biologicals on U.S. and British troops. There are thousands and thousands of these tests. The New York subway in 1968 had an unnamed biological agent released. They even had Army doctors waiting in the hospitals to see how the effects were working. They've also legalized in federal regulations that U.S. foster children, the last cases I saw were in 2005, which just showed you some of the articles, New York Daily News, where they took young black children from their parents and fed them pesticides until they died. The children would beg and plead. They would take healthy children, and after a week of the testing, they were strapped down begging for their lives as they were tortured to death. And finally, some CPS workers went public and said, look, we're actually killing these kids. They were reprimanded and fired. The only reason we know about the murder of the small black children, and I just showed you the news articles, is because the CPS workers went public that they were delivering them to their deaths in Big Pharma. The truth is, Big Pharma in the United States and England and Germany funded Adolf Hitler. And after Hitler was defeated, they said, we've got to be stealth about this. We're going to do this through the vaccines. I'm going to go to some of those quotes coming up. But first, I wanted to counter the propaganda and lies of the system and go through some of the different hoaxes that these mass murderers have engaged in. Again, a coward poisons your food, poisons your water, poisons your medicine. They don't use big armies anymore. Hitler failed them. They move by stealth. You have to remember that. And they're targeting everyone but themselves. This is total warfare like the Romans did, the Israelites, and many others, where they attempt to degenerate and dumb down everyone. And in fact, one more point of history before I get into this latest information. You know the Nazis went into Poland and killed all the doctors, the lawyers, the intelligentsia, all they could find. When the Soviets liberated Poland, it's on record that they killed hundreds of thousands of intelligentsia that had survived. You know Pol Pot in Cambodia under U.S. government funding, that's declassified, killed about 30% of the population, or anyone wearing glasses, anyone who could write. They would talk to your neighbors. Can he write? Does he have glasses? That was seen as being upper class. They wanted to fully re-educate society, and they would take you out and kill you. It's called the killing fields. In America and Europe today, and Latin America, Africa, Asia, they don't take you out and kill you. They kill your brain. They give you sodium fluoride, radioactive isotopes in the water, shoot you up with vaccines. Our IQ is dropping. Our life expectancy is dropping. We've gone over those numbers. I would be much more intelligent. I mean, my dad was top of his class. I'm an adult moron compared to people like my father when it comes to technical tasks. I've still got gut-level instincts and resistance, though. So I'm running on pure, just gut-level resistance. I've been brain damaged. I've been hit hard. So have you. You need to understand this, of what these mass murderers are doing. They now admit they are chemtrailing, barium salts, aluminum dioxide. They're already killing most of the soils. Don't worry, Monsanto is now coming out with a aluminum-resistant plant. So you'll only be able to operate through them. Now, we've got a lot more here. We're getting into eugenics, and that's the philosophy and the system of the New World Order. But I wanted to go ahead and just remind you here with the document cam shot of a hoax before I get into the latest hoaxes. Rick Perry in 2007 came out and said, it's the law, you must take the shot. Now he's claiming he only made it recommended. Okay? But if you read this USA Today article here, Texas governor orders anti-cancer vaccine. And then it says here, the state is to require, the state is to order, it is the law, you will have to get. And of course, now it's a big presidential national issue. You now know that it wasn't the law, and he lied and just said it was, so they can make billions alone. They make over $500 per 3-round shot inoculation. So we've seen the hoax of Rick Perry saying it's the law to take this shot that's killing people and maiming many others implode. But now they're gone into California and actually gotten a bill passed on the governor's desk to forcibly inoculate children without parental consent. That's coming up. But I want to go to one more piece of eugenics information first, with several quotes of thousands with leading globalists saying that they would engineer vaccines to force this on the population. Here's one of those quotes. Diet, injections, and injunctions will combine for a very early age to produce the sort of character and the sort of beliefs that the authorities consider desirable. Again, they don't just kill you like Pol Pot, they kill your brain. And any serious criticism of the powers that be will become psychologically impossible. And Bertrand Russell, the big Nobel Prize-winning liberal trendy, went on to say, it'll be like sheep revolting against the practice of eating mutton, which is sheep. Okay, and I've got a bunch more of these clips, and I've also got the Rockefeller Foundation documents saying we've got to put sterilants in vaccines. That's coming up. But first, I want to go through all the Gardasil news. Let's go to another one of those quotes. Adding a sterilant to drinking water or staple foods is a suggestion that seems to horrify people more than most proposals for involuntary fertility control. But then the White House science czar, he's the current White House science czar, went on to say, indeed, this would pose some very difficult political, legal, and social questions, to say nothing of the technical problems. But then he went ahead to go ahead and basically call for it. And by the time he'd written that in the 70s, it was already implemented. In fact, perhaps we should just go ahead and, should we go to the Rockefeller Foundations on the vaccines first, or get into vaccines, the current Gardasil sterilant autoimmune weapon? What do you guys want to hit first? Yeah, let's get to those documents now. Yeah, no teleprompters. We have so much documentation, we get to about half of it each night. There's the president's 5-year review And this is advising the federal government. And the Rockefeller Foundation says we need to come up with a vaccine that sterilizes people that's hidden in another vaccine. And since then, they've been caught through the UN doing this all over the world. But by the mid-1980s, don't worry, this is a report from the 60s. By the mid-1980s, they had come up and they said, we have made great strides now with these sterilants being added to the vaccine. So they're saying this is very, very exciting. And, of course, now they're just going to forcibly inject your daughter without parental consent because they're hardcore funders of Hitler. I mean, that's what the Rockefellers did. They were the main funders. And they understand that you're gullible and can't believe they're doing this to you. So you're going to lay down and die, I know. Being sarcastic, I hope you'll wake up and get angry at these killers. I'm certainly risking my life to expose these people. They think so little of you that I've been told they don't even care that I'm on air exposing it. In fact, they make a sick joke about it, I'm told, that, well, those that are intelligent will listen to Alex, but those that aren't will trust us, and begin laughing about it. So you've been warned. As I say in my film Endgame, you have been warned. Now let's continue here, because I'm just as amazed going over this information, even though I know it forwards and backwards as you are, to look at the latest hoax. They've had a bioethicist attached to Merck and Bill and Melinda Gates and all these other big foundations come out in Forbes and say, hey, I will give you $10,000, Michelle Bachmann, who dared follow Ron Paul's lead and question Perry about his hoax of forced inoculation, if you can prove that there's been one person ever damaged by Gardasil in its 5-year history since its trials and now adoption. Well, it turns out that close to a quarter of all vaccine adverse reaction reports to the CDC, this is of thousands of different variants of vaccines, hundreds of vaccines, hundreds of companies making each vaccine in many cases, thousands of variants, close to a quarter. We're talking to Dr. Wakefield coming up about this. Close to a quarter of these are for Gardasil. And remember, only 2% of adverse reactions get reported on average. It's 18,727 right now, many of them deaths. Oh, and blood clots, Guillain-Barré, neurological disorder, narcolepsy, serious adverse reports, deaths. It says there's deaths, 54 deaths among females, 3 among males. They're now shooting little boys up for cervical cancer because I guess little boys have cervixes. A lot of fluoride heads will actually think you have a cervix. You don't have a cervix, folks. Let me just give you a newsflash. About to say something vulgar, but there's just no end to it. So let's go ahead and go to a clip of some of these guys on the Sunday news shows last weekend, telling you that this is incredibly safe. No one's gotten sick, and showing you CDC letterhead, thinking you're too stupid to actually go to the CDC where they admit this is going on, and even their admission's a whitewash. Here it is.
John, is there any science that suggests HPV vaccine can have that effect?
Scott, it's so important to separate the politics from the science. What the science is, this is a vaccine that can prevent the virus that causes cancer of the cervix. There are 35 million doses that have been given in the United States since 2006. According to the Centers for Disease Control, the Institute of Medicine, and the American Academy of Pediatrics, there's no link between this vaccine and any kind of mental impairment.
John, is there any science that suggests HPV vaccine can have that effect?
Scott, it's so important to separate the politics from the science. What the science is, this is a vaccine that can prevent the virus that causes cancer of the cervix.
You know, I tell you what, Marcos, please bring me your glasses. Thank you. Oh, is there any, look, ooh. If I just do this and I wear a fancy suit and I go, let me talk to a vaccine company front guy that doesn't tell you that. Is there any evidence? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. By the way, we're some of your biggest advertisers here with Merck on the Sunday news shows. You know, we're financing you tens of millions a year. So listen, boy, you work for me. Oh, but no, you're not told that. You're just told how great all of this is. You're told how wonderful it is. And, oh, there's not any adverse effects. But here's the biggest news. And we're going to break and coming back with Andrew Wakefield, Dr. Wakefield on this. Merck's political donations purchased California Gardasil bill votes. And there's this big breakdown of them basically buying the legislature for AB 499. And they certainly bought their souls cheaply. And we've even got a Fox News clip, I don't know if we have time to go to that, where where they've got the people on there and they're saying, well, so you are for parents not being told that their kids are being injected, and they actually defend it. I mean, this is mind-blowing that this is happening. I gave the guys a lot of research in the last few days for this report, and we haven't even covered half of it. That's what's frustrating about this. They're just hoping that they dangle their glasses and go, John, is there any evidence? Absolutely not. It's preposterous. The CDC says no problems. Yeah, they're just talking about deaths. And by the way, since we got this number just a few weeks ago, I was corrected. It's over 20,000 now. This is just their latest press release. I mean, there's a trail of death and destruction behind this. It's come out the vaccine's contaminated on top of it. That's all coming up. Look, we're going to go to break, come back with Dr. Wakefield, and that's another hoax. They say this guy's been discredited when it's the opposite. These people, it isn't just about profit. This is a cult of control freaks. Think of all the drugs that have had to be recalled. They now admit they knew day one Prozac was causing birth defects and people to kill their children, and is a psychotropic psycho drug, basically an hallucinogen. I mean, wake up, Ritalin, all of it. We're going to go to break and come back, but this is eugenics, bottom line. Please, we're going to email this report out, even if you're not a PrisonPlanet.tv member. We're going to email this out at the InfoWars Insider free newsletter. If you go up and sign up at the top of InfoWars.com, you can get the email free with the articles and the videos, everything else there. And please continue to spread the word. We're risking our names, our treasure, our families, everything to bring you this information. The track record of the ruling class that runs this country in Europe is one of abject human testing, murder, control, because these people like to play gods. We'll be back with a true champion of liberty and health safety, Dr. Wakefield, straight ahead.
The American dream. There's a reason they call it a dream. Who's there? Cock-a-doodle-doo, pal. No, 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 no! I don't have any more money! My job sucks right now, please! I'll have more money next month! You can't take my house!
Is that your signature?
It is a private bank owned by private stockholders. A private bank? Do not let the name Federal fool you. If I got this money from the bank, and the bank got it from the Federal Reserve dump trucks, where does the Federal Reserve get their money? They take our property away, just like Thomas Jefferson said they would. Those sons of bitches! It's the greatest theft in human history.
We are back. It's InfoWars Nightly News, and we're continuing our in-depth analysis of one of the greatest frauds or hoaxes ever perpetrated. The vaccine big pharma industry pushing verifiably dangerous products on the population and attempting to hoax the public that it's the law that you must take these shots, as Rick Perry did 4 years ago in Texas, now becoming a national issue. And of course, we documented the latest hoax where they have people connected to Merck and financed by Bill and Melinda Gates and others openly coming out and wearing their white doctor's coats saying, nobody's ever gotten sick from this. In fact, we'll give $10,000 to anybody that can prove that Gardasil has ever damaged anybody. And I went and looked up the numbers a few days ago. It was 18,000 plus adverse reactions from the Gardasil HPV alone. And on top of that, I was talking to Dr. Wakefield. He was saying it's now above 20,000. I can't think of anybody better, sir, to interview than you, because you yourself, and I've seen the documents and the reports, you are also a victim of their hoax. They just keep saying you've been discredited when the opposite has happened. Good to have you here with us.
It's great to be here, Alex. Thank you very much.
Let's start before we get into their latest activities and the incredible developments in California that you've been fighting that's gotten almost no national attention. Let's start, though, with their hoax against you. Who you are, what you've gone through, the new studies that have come out, and the old studies that have been discovered, confirming your research. And I know you got some surprises in the future, but we won't get into that today. But basically, what you've gone through.
Well, Alex, I'm an academic gastroenterologist. Parents came to me, said my child was fine, had a vaccine, in this case the MMR vaccine, and then they regressed into autism. We investigated the children's gastrointestinal symptoms that had been left in abeyance by the doctors, and lo and behold, the parents were right, the kids were sick. When we treated them, not only did the bowel disease get better, but the autism improved as well. So there's a link between the bowel and the brain, and there may well be a link between that and the vaccines. And raising that issue, merely asking for further research to be done, led the world to come down on my shoulders and the shoulders of any doctor who dared to question the safety of this vaccine. Well, that was 15, 16 years ago. We're still in the game. There is undoubtedly a connection between these vaccines in some way and neurodevelopmental regression into diseases such as autism, and that is not going to go away. We're going to resolve that issue, and we're going to resolve it right here.
Well, even the big federal vaccine damage fund has paid out. Just lately, I saw 80-plus families of autistic children. The federal government, on one side, admits there's this connection, and then on the other side, they come out and run this hoax, just using a reporter to say you've been discredited. And it seems to be their stock in trade to just make outrageous claims like the new one. Can you speak to this new claim that they're saying? Because now Gardasil's become a national issue in the campaign with all the Republican candidates attacking Rick Perry. And the claim by Merck operatives that no one's ever been hurt by this?
Well, if you look at the adverse events reporting system, and got to remember this is the VAERS system, it's a federal system run by the CDC. It is known to report to accumulate 1 to 10% of adverse reactions, a small minority. And the latest report I saw in there was 22,000 reports of adverse reactions from this vaccine alone, the Gardasil vaccine, or the cervical cancer vaccine. And that is alarming. That's nearly 1/4 of the total reports of adverse reactions in that system. So there is a real problem with this vaccine.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Hundreds of different vaccines out there, hundreds and hundreds of variants of each vaccine, different companies out there. I don't have the numbers, but I know there's thousands of different variants out there. And you're saying it's nearly 1/4 of all adverse reactions are directly being attributed to Gardasil?
The latest number was 24% of the total number are attributed to the cervical vaccine. That is one of the 2 that are available on the market.
Well, earlier we played some of these clips and covered it in this ridiculous $10,000 challenge. And I've even had callers on the radio say, well, there's a challenge. They're saying no one's ever gotten sick. Why would they issue a $10,000 challenge? Well, they never have to defend that challenge. They've defined that challenge. I mean, is hoax a strong enough word to describe what they've done to you, saying that you were discredited with no evidence, but just distributing the information all over media? And is hoax a big enough word to describe their operatives' claims that no one has ever had an adverse reaction?
Well, I think this is laughable. It's a disgrace. And here you have a professor of bioethics from the University of Pennsylvania indulging in some publicity stunt by offering a $10,000 award if this Congresswoman Backman can come forward with someone who has suffered mental retardation from this vaccine. What a disgrace that we should ever be in that situation. The job of scientists, physicians, is to answer the fundamental questions about whether these vaccines are safe or not, or whether they're needed in the first place. And to then indulge in some scam, some circus act of offering $10,000 in the face of many, many children who've been severely damaged by these vaccines, then that is utterly reprehensible.
Now, Doctor, separately, I've seen the press reports out there dealing with other vaccines and autoimmune disorders. And I know on the H1N1 insert, it said it could cause autoimmune disorders, was linked to cancer, could cause Guillain-Barré, other problems with the brain, could cause narcolepsy. And I know talk show hosts personally who called and apologized and said, my God, I took that and couldn't feel my hands and feet for a month, went to the doctor, and they said, it's an adverse reaction, Guillain-Barré, you've had some type of brain nerve inflammation. So this is in the literature. And back when they were testing it in 2006, 2007, I was having medical doctors on. There was local newscasts reporting it around the country that people were having autoimmune disorders, convulsions, blood coming out of different orifices, dying. And I'm no rocket scientist, but the scientist I interviewed said it's causing an autoimmune problem. Well, now we learn. Just last week, I know you were on my radio show with Mike Adams sitting in, and we showed the documents that a vaccine testing company tested 13 different lots and found that they had bound more of the virus RNA or DNA than they normally do, and that it was bound to the adjuvant, and that it would, most scientists said, would then probably trigger autoimmune disorders. How could they have different manufacturers for Merck binding it to that? I mean, that sounds like that's done on purpose, but I know that's a side issue. I'm putting the cart before the horse. What do we know specifically that these vaccines are doing to cause autoimmune problems?
Well, we don't, and this is the tragedy. We should, and we do not know. Now, what's happened here is that the proteins of the virus should be in the vaccine to promote the immune response. What they now find, after giving this to millions of people years down the line, that the vaccine actually contains recombinant DNA from the virus, bound, as you say, to the aluminum adjuvant. That is a very dangerous combination. And we know that in certain autoimmune diseases, such as lupus, then you develop antibodies against DNA. And that is part of the disease process. Here we have a situation where the adjuvant that's designed to promote, to boost, to aggravate the immune response is bound to this foreign DNA that they did not know was there in the first place. And that is a potentially very dangerous situation. So to say that the benefits of this vaccine outweigh the risks when you didn't even know this stuff was there in the first place is unacceptable.
Well, Doc, we played a clip last week when you came on the show of one of the developers, co-developers with Salk of polio and other vaccines, and they just admitted on CBC and laughed about it. They said, yeah, there's leukemia viruses in a lot of these shots. Yes, there was the SV40 that caused a lot of cancers. That's not even debated, and it's in all the medical literature, but then when we warn people about this, they just laugh at us and say that we're hoaxing. I mean, they're clearly the hoaxers. I know you focused on the gut. I mean, that's what you're a medical doctor of. You look at that, and I know off record you told me some very exciting things that you're going to be releasing in just the next few weeks. But clearly, from my perspective, their hoax against you, their hoax on Gardasil saying it's totally safe, is not working. I just can't wait to see these people really be punished for what they've done instead of persecuting real medical doctors who are trying to actually keep their Hippocratic oath.
Well, the sadness for me, Alex, is that so many children, and in this case with Gardasil, young women, have been damaged along the way in the absence of any real knowledge of what's going on. This vaccine, the Gardasil vaccine, the Cerevix vaccine, are a major problem for the federal agencies. One is they've now discovered it's contaminated. Two, the safety studies were never adequate in the first place. It was rushed to market. Even the developers of the vaccine, Diane Harper, was particularly concerned about the way in which this was marketed. It was not intended originally for women in first world countries like the States. It is a marketing exercise. And now we have in California this effort to mandate the vaccine for girls, and not only do so, allow girls of 12, 13, 14 go against potentially their parental advice, their parental insight, and say they're going to have the vaccine instead. And that is going to destroy the fabric of the family. How can you possibly usurp the rights of the parents to dictate their children's healthcare needs and wishes when, in fact, the state takes over, the pharmaceutical industry take over, and clandestinely, without the parents knowing, in the absence of the parents' permission, or indeed explicitly against the parents' wishes, go ahead and have this vaccine. It's really very, very damaging as a precedent to set.
I took off a few days over the weekend, and I was listening on my iPad while I was jogging on vacation to the iPhone app of my radio show, and you were a guest when Mike Adams was sitting in guest hosting, and I heard what you were saying about California, and I believed it because I've looked at your research, and I don't just trust what you're saying, but still, I was taken back by the information on California. As soon as I got back to the hotel, I went directly to the internet and found out it was all over California news. It had not become a national news story yet, and that indeed that the bill was on the desk of the governor, passed, to not get parental consent for the Gardasil shot of young girls in schools. And again, people think that I'm going to know everything. I don't. It's always far worse than I could even imagine. But even I, as much as I know, it was so hard to believe that not only would Perry run this hoax and say, it's the law, you've got to take this shot and then be exposed 4 years ago, but that they would actually get a state to make it the law. And as you pointed out on the radio, this is where they show them a film. They have a PR person, and they go, oh, look, this girl's going to get it first. Isn't she brave? And then they give them iPads and all the rest of this. I actually went and looked it up. They've done that with similar systems. But then I went and looked up the law. I remembered this, but I went and checked the law. And here's the key, and I want you to comment on this. If a 20-year-old man gets a 15-year-old girl to get in their car and he has sex with her, even if she consented, it's statutory rape because she's not at the age to be able to consent. If a killer entices a 5-year-old to get in the car because they have a puppy, it isn't okay because that person doesn't really have free will yet in common law until the age of 18. And so it really is forced inoculation to not tell the parents and then induce them and brainwash them to do it. And then separately, it's such a wild escalation of authoritarian, tyrannical activity. And I want you to speak to this, to in America, or any free country, say we're not going to tell parents we're going to shoot their kid up with something while it's a national controversy and has been linked to so many illnesses and even deaths. It's just off the charts for me that it's reached this level. And if they get away with this, they want to forcibly inoculate every girl in Mexico. Now they're saying little boys. I know of cases where CPS take people's children because they won't vaccinate, when there's not even a law. I mean, we are seeing a medical tyranny in this country, and I know that's how the tyranny started in Germany, was first through the medical system. Can you speak to my little rant here?
Certainly, Alex. Fundamental to the fabric of society, American society, society anywhere, is the family structure. Our parents raising their children adequately, sensibly, based upon their own experience, and protecting them for things that they, as adults, feel may be dangerous, harmful to their children. What we have here is a situation where, in direct violation of that, in direct violation of what the government would otherwise seek to endorse, is that the family structure, the family fabric of America is sustained, is preserved, is protected. We are seeing a violation of that where the pharmaceutical industry and the state are saying, no, don't trust your parents. Trust us. We know better. You don't even need to tell them, perhaps. And we'll coerce you. Children are the most vulnerable to this kind of coercion, this kind of propaganda. So if you show them a movie, first period in school, where they see a woman dying of severe cervical cancer, they're going to be terrified, justifiably terrified. And that's the kind of motivation I fear is going to be introduced into this process to coerce these children into getting this vaccine without adequate informed consent, without the children understanding the basis of informed consent, without being told about the adverse reactions, without being told that there have been more than 100 deaths so far reported to the vaccine adverse events reporting system, and all of this contrary perhaps to the parents' advice to protect their children.
What about the precedent in this area? If they can brainwash your children and get them to consent, you've got to get a letter from the parents to take a 5th grader to the zoo or the planetarium. But you don't have to get consent to inject them. We saw this during the H1N1 in Oklahoma and Alabama and other states where they were accidentally shooting up kids they hadn't gotten the consent for. This is part of a just diabolical, the diabolical nature of Big Pharma. Earlier in the show, we played clips. Even in mainstream news, they admitted that Bayer knew that they were shipping out tens of thousands of ampules of contaminated factor VIII with HIV and hepatitis, the atomic soldiers, the radiating of foster children. Who are these people? Do they just see us as lab rats? Is it a scientific power trip? What's going on here?
It's a marketing exercise. It's how to get the biggest return on an expensive vaccine. And that's the tragedy. There are several problems for the vaccine, for this particular vaccine, is that there are many what are called re-exposure phenomena. In other words, kids are getting sick on the first one, worse on the second one, and real problems on the third one. That's very strong evidence of causation. You can see in a situation where a little girl gets it at school, oh, don't tell your parents. That wasn't anything to do with the vaccine. You just had a little cold. Your arm hurt. You were just sore. Second time round, it gets worse. There are going to be real problems with this, and parents who are left to pick up the pieces if there is damage won't even know about it until it's too late.
Well, that was my next point. is I was thinking about that. What happens when they have adverse reactions? The school is now going to deny it. I mean, this is really the big pharma enticing the school to aid and abet and be part of this crime, because I've already seen cases in the last 20 years, this infant death, sudden infant death syndrome, and it turned out the child has a convulsion, dies that night, or in the car sometimes. Sometimes they die in the nurse's office or at the hospital. Then they come and say, well, we did a CAT scan, there's blood on the brain, you beat your child. And then it's actually come out in court, no, it was the vaccines. It's like that Sky Television piece they had where the girl got the Gardasil and died in the class. Thank God, or they would have said the parents killed her. I mean, this is so incredible that they do this. Dr. Wakefield, we're out of time for InfoWars Nightly News, but we have a feature that a lot of the viewers watch that is special reports. I'm going to end the show here because of time constraints, but please stay with us if you will. I want to come back and try to give you the floor for 10 minutes or so to get into some of the other incredible things you're working on, but you are certainly a humanitarian. In closing, tell the viewers out there the websites where they can learn more about what you're doing.
Well, I think EBCALA is a website they need to go to, the Elizabeth Burt Center for Law and Advocacy. So this is something where they will, if they want to catch up on this story and see how it's perceived by those people who, as you know, expose the fact that autism had been compensated, or children whose neurological injury that resulted in autism has been compensated for now nearly over 30 years by the government, while they were denying it on the other hand. That's a very good place to go to get an update on their position on this particular issue of the Gardasil and the Cervarix vaccines. And then your site specifically as well. My site is callous-disregard.com, where people can go to read my book, and vaccinesafetyfirst.com is another website where we have a lot of information posted. Well, I just want to say, Dr. Wakefield, in closing, I appreciate the fact that when they demonized you, they lied at you, you never left the arena and only kept swinging. And on other shows, and even national news in England's had to admit that there were other scientists that had separately done the same research but not published it, that found the same thing. And there have been other now research done duplicating exactly what you found, and that it's a hoax, that you engaged in any fraud. And the fact that they targeted you out of thousands of doctors and scientists and activists is because you are articulate, you are very effective, you've got a lot of Hollywood stars like Jenny McCarthy involved, and they're scared of you. But like the phoenix, you are rising again because you never got swatted down to begin with. And I can't think of a more important issue than this medical big pharma tyranny that we could be fighting. And God bless you for your stalwart. Thank you for having me on the show. Thank you so much. We're going to come right back to you in Overdrive. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for InfoWars Nightly News. This is the type of information we cover here each and every day. And it is a real honor to be able to work with people like Dr. Wakefield and the countless other individuals out there who cannot be bought, who cannot be intimidated. We know cancer rates have doubled in the last few decades. Diabetes has doubled, the major type. We know that our friends and family are dying of cancer. We know, as we covered earlier, the Rockefeller Foundation plan to put sterilants in vaccines and also cancer viruses. We will cover this eugenics agenda. It started in England, became popular in the United States. The Rockefellers funded Adolf Alois Hitler. He carried out his first tyranny through medical tyranny, and that's all this is basically a profit motive linked up with a bunch of control freak eugenicists who are above the law. It is time that the court of public opinion rout out these devils. Lord willing, we'll see you back tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern, for InfoWars Nightly News. Great job to the crew. Again, we'll see you out there, ladies and gentlemen, on the front lines. Okay, my friends, that was the Nightly News. Because I've got a lot of TV systems wanting to start picking this up, we've got to start honing it down to 30 minutes in the next few months. But now we're going to start posting these expanded interviews in the special reports section of PrisonPlanet.tv and InfoWarsNews.com. And please download these videos, upload them to YouTube, share them with everyone you know, because we are definitely having a big effect. Doctor, that's my final question. Then I want to give you the floor for at least 10 minutes to flesh out any other areas that I didn't get into because I was asking a lot of the questions. Is it not a buoying, positive sign that every other Republican candidate, Mitt Romney, Michelle Bachmann, and of course driven by Dr. Ron Paul, who first started talking about it,
that they're all attacking Rick Perry for it, that it's driven down his poll numbers, that we've seen national polls of close to 90% are against Gardasil and think that Perry trying to push forced inoculation was wrong. I mean, is that not a really positive sign that going from being voices in the wilderness, now this is becoming one of the biggest issues in the country? And because you are a leading advocate for vaccine awareness of the dangers, what are you seeing? I mean, is my political and media view of what I'm seeing, is that accurate? Are people waking up?
Yeah, well, my principal concern, Alex, as you know, is vaccine safety, a safety-first vaccine agenda. So what we have here is a fascinating situation. There is nothing that the federal agencies, the CDC, and the pharmaceutical industry want more than to keep this out of the news, to be silent about this, to pass the laws that allow them to do what they want, but for it never to make the news. Now, God forbid, it's reached the national stage where it's become an issue during the presidential candidacy race. Now, that's an extraordinary situation, and it's not going to go away. So they've overreached, they've overstepped, and now it's part of the mix. And when Dr. Kaplan, the bioethicist, I say with some reservation, from UPenn, offered $10,000 to the Congresswoman to find someone who had been injured by this vaccine that resulted in mental retardation, then it raised the stakes even further. It kept it in the news. Now, an Australian businessman whose daughter was damaged by the HPV vaccine has come back and offered $10,000 to him to prove that children have not been injured in this way by the vaccine. So suddenly it's right in the news, front and center, and it's not going to go away. And the parents of children who have been damaged by this vaccine or who have potentially been damaged, who are intelligent, articulate parents, who were not anti-vaccine, who encouraged their daughters to get this vaccine, are now regretting it, are not going to let this go away. They are deeply offended by the notion that the CDC are coming forward and saying no one has ever been damaged by this vaccine, it's perfectly safe, when the numbers are there being collected by the CDC itself. And one of the concerns I have is that they're accumulating these numbers, these 20,000, 22,000, whatever it is, adverse reactions to this vaccine. What are they doing with those? What are they doing with those reports? Those reports, each and every one, should be thoroughly investigated, meticulously investigated, with the child investigated, the child examined, the child put through testing. Well,
we've scanned for now almost 5 years the reports on local news. That's where it's been getting out. It's always the same. Autoimmune, can't walk, can't talk, blood coming out of every orifice. I mean, this is some nasty stuff. And then they can't debate the fact that in quite a few cases, they drop dead in minutes. I mean, it's bam, shot dead, and they're like, oh, this isn't caused by that. I mean, this isn't going to work. And as you said, these pro-vaccine folks who bought into the system, they're going in and then now experiencing the deaths, the carnage, the convulsions. One of the most common is just little bloody spots all over their body. This is just amazing. And the attitude of the vaccine lobby is, let's just go forward. It doesn't matter. And on top of it, this is something they tried to force. And then we're here complaining about it, and they're saying, oh, no, there's never been a problem. And it's just an amazing hoax.
Well, what you see, what has happened to me, and perhaps you and others in turn, is that when you've come out and said something against vaccine trials or the lack of safety studies, we've been attacked. There's been an unholy attack on us. Well, okay, but the trouble is when politicians get involved, and they get attacked as well, they start to see what we've been going through. And they say to themselves, wow, maybe this is, maybe it all was a great big hoax in the first place. The vehemence of the attack against me for merely suggesting that Governor Rick Perry was wrong in what he did, something to which I think he's now admitted he did the wrong thing. But when you start leveling that kind of attack against other people, politicians, journalists, other scientists, people are going to collectively say, wow, now we know what that guy went through. And this is the attack we get for just making a reasonable request.
That's what happened with Al Gore. As top scientists would come out and say, well, sea levels are dropping and carbon dioxide doesn't cause temperature to go up. Here we have the ice core graphs. We have the sun, the scans of the sun. And they would be attacked and said, how dare you? You need to be fired. That made tens of thousands of other scientists come out and challenge them. And now even the Green Movement is telling Al Gore, he needs to step down and that their carbon tax is basically dead. I think it's that attempt to persecute that you just alluded to that is going to bring back the spirit of research.
I think that's right. They've overreached. They have overreached. And trying to force this vaccine on 12-year-old, 13-year-old girls in California without their parental consent has caused a lot of right-thinking people who are invested in the liberty of this country and the Constitution saying, no, this is not an issue about Gardasil or not. This is not an issue about cervical cancer or not. It's about usurping the rights of parents to determine the healthcare choices of their children. And you cannot take that away, and they've made a huge mistake. Well,
that's well said. Even if you're for this Gardasil, now you want your kids injected without you knowing? I mean, no one should support that. And there's been a few national stories on this. We played a clip earlier of one of these bureaucrats promoting it on Fox News, saying, yeah, it's all right for parents not to know, or basically being like a deer in the headlights. I mean, this is so Orwellian. Dr. Wakefield, in the time we've got a few minutes, any other points that you'd like to raise? I mean, I would like you just to briefly to talk about, because it was a few months ago that I last interviewed you on it and saw some of the news in England, where it turns out studies previous to yours that you weren't aware of actually duplicated what you'd done, and now others have duplicated it. And we're seeing numbers out of Asia. I saw one country where it's more than 1 in 40 becoming autistic.
South Korea, 1 in 36 children now have an autistic spectrum disorder. That is an extraordinary number. No society can sustain that level of damage. I do not know what is going to happen, and those numbers are surely reflected elsewhere in the world. South Korea is not alone in that. So we have a major, major problem, and until right-thinking Americans, until right-thinking people stand back and say, there is a major issue here, and we need to address it. It is now recognized that the disease is environmental. The mainstream, whatever that was, the old guard have had to completely reverse their position on the relative roles of genetics and the environment. It's now a major environmental disease.
Does it hit boys because, as all doctors know, or at least I've always heard it said, girls are tougher? I mean, why then statistically has it been worse on boys?
A number of things. I mean, we know that thimerosal can interact with testosterone to potentiate the adverse effects of the mercury compound. That estrogen protects the brain, so are girls relatively protected compared with boys?
Are girls really overall tougher, as other doctors have told me?
They may well be. Certainly as neonates and infants, they have a lower infant mortality rate from infectious disease. So history has told us that girls are tougher from the get-go.
Wow. Please continue. This is incredible information. So it's just going from memory. What was it? 30 years ago, it was 1 in 25,000. Then a decade ago, it was, 1 in 5,000 roughly. And then just 2 years ago, it was 1 out of 160. And then 1 out of, 98 in the U.S. And I've seen numbers as 1 in 55. And then in South Korea, you said 1 out of 36. My God.
1 out of 36. The UK figures are in the order of 1 in 50, 1 in 48.
Well, then they say it's over-reporting and that doctors are just claiming people are autistic. No. I'm only 37 years old. There was a tiny special ed area at the school I went to in Dallas, and then a few years of high school here in Austin. Tiny. Now, some schools, a third of normal schools are this. I try to take my children, just observing, to movies, and they'll have several rows lined up of children who are clearly autistic. And my heart cries out for them. I go to the mall. I go to the hike and bike trail. It's everywhere, doctor. I mean, do we have to have all our children being locked up in this cage of mental brain damage before we do something? I mean, clearly it's the pesticides and all this cocktail of things. But from all the scientists I've talked to, like Dr. Blaylock, prestigious brain surgeon, he says, though, the vaccines push it over the edge because they're injected directly into the body.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. There is an overstimulation of an infant's immune system. They cannot, nor were they ever designed to deal with this barrage of environmental insults in this way from the earliest times. So there is a huge problem. It's no point in ignoring it. We need to address it. As you say, there are now, the numbers are 54%, according to one report recently, of American children have some chronic health disorder. 54%. 1 in 3 children, 1 in 6 children have some kind of neurodevelopmental impairment. This is an alarming number of children and quite unacceptable. The US has one of the highest infant mortality rates amongst first world countries in the world, where vaccination is most intensive. So if you're seeking to reduce infant mortality rate in developing countries, then you're not going to do it by introducing vaccinations more intensively. You're going to do it by introducing the basics such as food and water and clean living.
And I've also read the mercury in the vaccines is actually altering our DNA permanently, generationally. This is like waking up in a science fiction nightmare. Now just briefly, sir, here in closing, because I know you don't like to even defend yourself because you know you've got the facts, but you were talking about the studies that have now come out that you learned were done in England, separate from you, that had basically the same results.
Well, I think the most compelling study recently was actually, in terms of support of my position, was the one from the Pace Law School, showing that, in fact, the government in this country has been settling cases of brain damage where the outcome was autism in the child for over 30 years. So
before you?
Yeah, before me, long before I ever came on the scene.
Well, they hate you because you hit the nail on the head, buddy. You hit bullseye on their butt.
And they should have been researching this. They should have been following those children in the long term to protect future children from being damaged. They did not do their job properly, and that is a serious omission.
But there was another study you were telling me about in England where they basically found some of the same things that you've done. I don't know, it was a while back we talked. There's so many of these studies.
There are now so many studies. In fact, another one just came out from Harvard 3 days ago that I saw, confirming the bowel disease in children with autism. So the evidence is accumulating.
Well, I've seen links to Crohn's with the measles. They find that in all the Crohn's people, basically, that they have that antibody for it living in their intestine.
Well, that work is interesting and needs to be pursued, but my belief is that certainly some forms of Crohn's disease can be linked to measles exposure. Or
so it's not all of them, but you're seeing it.
That's right. That's correct.
All I know is that all these things are epidemic. Dr. Wakefield, incredible. Thank you for staying along with us. Really appreciate your work. And you've promised with these big announcements coming out, because the Patriots are striking back, you've promised to come on with us when this launches.
I'll be sitting right here.
Wow. Thank you so much. Okay, that's Overdrive, ladies and gentlemen. We're done, and that's what you get right here at PrisonPlanet.tv in the special reports section. We'll see you here at Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.tv.
Welcome to the InfoWars Nightly News. I'm your host, Melissa Melton, and here's what we have in store for you on this December 7th, 2012 edition.
Tonight, NATO says military intervention in Syria is imminent. Then, Congress pushes to hand over drone oversight to the DHS. Plus, learn how the Obama administration is considering responding to the legal pot in Colorado and Washington. That's coming up next on the InfoWars Nightly News.
Our top story tonight, NATO military intervention into Syria is now imminent. According to Paul Joseph Watson, sources close to the French Defense Ministry have reported today that a Western Arab military intervention against the Assad regime is due to begin shortly. And the report adds that the assault would be modeled on the Western intervention in Libya in 2011, and the attack could be preceded by an announcement that Assad has used chemical weapons. And I just want to remind everyone that 6 months ago, a report also came out showing that Syrian opposition actually got their hands on those chemical weapons, that they were training to use them in Turkey, and that the plan was they would use them against civilians and then blame that on the Assad regime. And as InfoWars has reported, a myriad of ways, we've also, our United States government and NATO powers have linked themselves to the rebels there in Syria, just like we did in Libya, that are linked to al-Qaeda terrorists. These are the same terrorists that were bad and blamed on 9/11 and were killing our troops in Iraq, and yet now we're actually siding with them. And I just pray that they don't actually use those weapons. But when you hear that in the media, you have to wonder who actually has these chemical weapons anyway. So I pray that those people are safe and that they don't use those. Moving on, the Obama administration is considering responding to legal pot now in Colorado and Washington in two different ways. The first is a task force made up of Maine Justice, the DEA, the State Department, and the Office of National Drug Control Policy is currently considering two courses of action here. One is for federal prosecutors to bring cases against low-level marijuana users in the hopes that they will make a motion to dismiss the case because the drug is legal, and then the department could obtain a court ruling saying that federal law trumps state. And the other option is for the Justice Department to file lawsuits against the states to prevent them from setting up systems to regulate and tax marijuana. And what you really have to wonder is what is the government's idea of justice here? I mean, recently we've seen a man in Montana who was set to receive 80 years in federal prison because he had a medicinal marijuana dispensary and was giving out marijuana to people for medical reasons, which was legally okay in his state. He's set to receive 80 years. That's what federal prosecutors are pushing for. And yet you've got former Penn State football coach Jerry Sandusky, who molested 10 boys over a 15-year period, which amounted to dozens of charges, and they only gave him 30 years. So which crime here is doing more harm to society? A man who is legally in his state giving out medicine to people who are sick to try and give them reprieve from cancer, or a man who has sexually assaulted boys for years and they have to live with that for the rest of their lives? And this is what our government considers justice. It's really a travesty. And continuing on with government travesties, the TSA is now honoring employees for their outstanding performance. Apparently in Hawaii, there was an awards ceremony, and the TSA gave people awards for their glorious service. The spokesperson said that it's been 10 years since the TSA took over security at the airports, and a lot of people who rolled out the operation are still with the firm. Well, you know who isn't with the firm would be all of the outed thieves, drug dealers, child molesters, kidnappers, and rapists who, while working at the TSA, committed those crimes. And all of the people who quit working at the TSA because they refuse to molest people and try to enforce Americans into this government indoctrination, into this government control program. But at least we can all rest assured that the TSA is keeping us safe from terrorists, right? Well, unfortunately, we can't do that because they've never caught even a single terrorist at all. And speaking further on the TSA, another Orlando airport is set to evict the TSA. Orlando International Airport said it could follow its neighbor, Orlando Sanford, in seeking to replace the government agency with private screeners. My guess is that Disneyland is losing huge profits because international tourists don't even want to come here. They don't want to mess with the TSA. We have some of the most aggressive measures that we have to deal with at our airports. And people from other countries aren't used to that, and they're probably just like, forget it, Mickey Mouse isn't even worth it. The Greater Orlando Aviation Authority chairperson Frank Krupenbacher actually said, I could care less about the politics of all this. All I care about is seeing those customers smiling, saying, I love the airport and I love Orlando. Well, Mr. Krupenbacher, unfortunately, no one is ever going to smile and say they love the airport when a family with a 3-year-old wheelchair-bound little boy is just trying to go to Disneyland to see Mickey Mouse, but first he has to go to the airport, get groped by old men, and have his wheelchair swabbed for bomb residue. No one's going to be loving the airport under those circumstances, so evict the TSA, that's the best hope you've got. And actually switching gears to drones, the Army is now working to ensure homemade bombs don't escape the gaze of Vader. And we're not even making this one up. 3 years ago, the U.S. military began testing a new drone-mounted sensor designed to auto-spot and track people from 25,000 feet, which they named Vader, which stands for Vehicle and Dismount Exploitation Radar. And supposedly this was explicitly designed to be used only in Afghanistan. And now the Army wants 3 years of maintenance and support for this system, which, if anything, just goes to show you that we aren't leaving Afghanistan anytime soon. And the fact that they name it Vader also goes to show that which side of the force our government obviously thinks that it's on. Pro tip, It's not the good guys. And that actually leads into something that Jakari told me about earlier, which I couldn't believe. Apparently, a whitehouse.gov petition has been started by people to secure resources and funding to begin construction of a Death Star by 2016. Apparently, almost 7,000 people, 6,819 people have signed a petition now. They want the government to have a Death Star. I don't even trust our government to wield a fly swatter, let alone a Death Star. This is horrifying. What I really hope about this is 7,000 people just trying to make a statement that they don't think the government takes these petitions seriously, although I would hate to see this be the one that our government actually does decide to take seriously and then go get a Death Star. That is horrifying. And finally, this is actually an article I put out today on Infowars.com. Will Congress Drone Caucus push for DHS drone oversight? Apparently, the House of Representatives has a Congressional Unmanned Systems Caucus. So basically, it's a drone caucus, which they have used to push for expanded domestic drone use. And one of its members is even leading the idea that the DHS needs to take over drone oversight from the Federal Aviation Administration. And you don't hear about these guys very often in the media, but they're very influential, and they consider themselves to be, quote, the drone industry's voice on Capitol Hill. Well, that industry voice actually received a combined total of $8 million in drone-related special interest campaign contributions. And now we've got caucus member Representative Michael McCall going on record to say that the DHS needs to step up and take over more control on this drone oversight from the FAA, because the FAA is just geared towards safety. And apparently he doesn't think safety is nearly as important as national security risks and the idea that potential terrorists could hijack our domestic drones. Well, as we saw with Hurricanes Katrina and Sandy, I don't think anybody is really thinking DHS has any interest in our personal safety. And with their unprecedented power grabs and all of their ammo buys, I think Mike Adams did an article where he said that they've bought enough ammunition now to do a 7-year war with the American people. That's more than 2 bullets for every man, woman, and child in this country. Nothing about any of that makes me feel safe. And the idea that one of our Congress people who is openly taking money from drone special interests is now calling for the DHS to have even more power is a pretty horrifying concept. But that actually reminds me to remind you all that tomorrow is our first ever drone mob that we will be hosting here in Austin, Texas at Zilker Park at 11 a.m. And we actually are going to give some amazing giveaways out there if you come bring your drones and fly them with us. Alex has also announced a $1,000 video contest for the best video shot at tomorrow's drone mob. And we're all going to be there. I'm going to be there. Jakari Jackson, David Ortiz, David Knight, Rob Dew. So come on out. We're actually protesting. This is a protest. What we're saying here is that the government is using our money. They're taking our money. They're putting it into this technology. They're upgrading it. And then they're turning it against us. Well, if Big Brother can fly drones on us, we can fly drones on them. So come on out, show your support for this. We need to raise awareness. That is it for the news portion of the program. Now let's go to the quote of the day. Today will be a day long remembered. It has seen the death of Kenobi and soon the fall of the rebellion. And actually, that's not Janet Napolitano, that's Darth Vader. Although I guess if 7,000 people on whitehouse.gov get their way, it will soon be Janet Napolitano saying such things. It's pretty horrifying, actually. So when we come back from break, I will be interviewing Kurt Linderman on vaccines and vaccine injuries. Stay tuned.
Recently, the Harvard School of Health looked at more than a dozen scientific studies concerning fluoride and confirmed what countless other scientists have been documenting for decades. Sodium fluoride in the body reduces IQ and increases cancers. You see, the aluminum industry and the fertilizer industries would have to pay to store all the toxic waste they produce. But instead, they get our counties and cities to pay to put the poison in our water. It's not just fluoride we're getting, but lead, mercury, arsenic, the list goes on. And a lot of this toxic waste comes from China. Unfortunately, fluoride and its derivatives are only one of hundreds of toxins being added to our drinking water. We're battling the globalist on so many fronts. Health is an area where we can all take control of our lives, and it all starts with that basic building block of water. It is time to purify our family's water. The ProPure filtration system with added fluoride filters is the best system from my research to protect you and your family. InfoWarsStore.com already has the lowest prices on ProPure water filtration. But until December 10th, we are going to offer 15% off the already lowest price. I know what I'm giving my family this Christmas. ProPure. Go to InfoWarsStore.com and get 15% off the already lowest price out there with the code WATER15. WATER15, and you get 15% off at InfoWarsStore.com.
As Skynet continues to rise, most Americans have no idea the arsenal their own government is prepared to use against them. Walking weapons and unmanned drones that will find their way to U.S. soil if they haven't already. But the future is not written in stone. Join InfoWars for the first ever drone mob December 8th at Zilker Park in Austin, Texas. This family-friendly event is to inform the public of the weapons that target us. Bring your own drones and spy planes as we make the statement that we don't want our weapons turned against us. Be there at 11 a.m. There will be some amazing giveaways and even a video contest. So bring your camera, because whoever films the best drone video at the event and posts it up on YouTube will receive 1,000 Federal Reserve notes. And be sure to use the hashtag DroneMob on Twitter and visit Infowars.com for more details. We are back, and I'm getting ready to speak with Kurt Linderman. He hosts Linderman Unleashed on Natural News Radio, which comes on right after the Alex Jones Show, and it has to do with vaccines and vaccine injuries. So let's talk to Kurt. Well, Kurt, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, Melissa. Thanks for having me on.
And real quick, do you want to show people your shirt?
Yeah.
Real quick. Instead of conspiracy theorist, it says conspiracy. What does it say down there?
Realist.
Realist. It's a good shirt. Okay, well, first I thought I might ask you, your website is viralsepidemic.com, and I thought I might ask you, what does virals stand for?
Well, it's an acronym that my wife brought up, and it stands for, we believe that our children that are vaccine injured aren't actually autistic, like the doctors want to claim.
Like the 1 in 88 or something? Well,
autism, the real definition of autism that came down with Dr. Connor back in the 40s is still 1 in 10,000. What we have now is virals, which is an acronym for vaccine-induced regressive autistic-like symptoms.
Okay, yeah. Do you think on that it's actually the age of the kids and the number of vaccines? Because I know we here in the U.S., we have like the most aggressive vaccine schedule in the world. Do you think that it's that, or do you think it's all of the adjuvants and the different chemicals, formaldehyde and thimerosal, that they put in these vaccines, or do you think it's a combination?
I think it's a combination of everything. There's people out there that still just say it's the mercury in the vaccines and that's it, and vaccines are great if you don't put the mercury in it, and that's a load of crap, to be honest with you. You know, you've got the aluminum, you've got the mercury, you've got the polysorbate 80, which is a carcinogen and a neurotoxin. You've got MSG in it. A lot of your gelatins and your peanut oils and everything. You're getting the severe allergies from the vaccines. There's so many things going on inside that vaccine, and synergistically, when you put aluminum and mercury together, it becomes a heck of a lot more toxic. So it's a combination of everything. And then you look at our American diet, and the kids are already immune compromised when they're getting these vaccines. So it's just a cumulative effect where there's just so much damage done that the vaccine schedule, the real intense vaccine schedule that we have here in America and many other Western nations like in the European Union, you have that intensive vaccine schedule that's just the straw that breaks the camel's back. I think GMOs play a role in autism as well.
Oh, yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I also think it's interesting how there's formaldehyde in vaccines, and you see all these public service announcements all the time that say smoking is bad for you because there's formaldehyde and that causes cancer, but yet somehow it's totally fine to shoot up a baby with formaldehyde.
Exactly, and shoot them up with, you know, sometimes 5, 6, 7 shots at one time.
Right. Well, actually, that kind of takes me into the next topic. You actually have a personal story about your son involving multiple vaccines. I didn't know if you wanted to share that with the people.
Well, it was a catch-up schedule, which is very typical. And my son had had ear infections, and the doctor was hesitant to vaccinate him while he had a fever and was sick. So when he finally got healthy, come in and not only get what he was due, but what he had been due. And it was a total of 6 vaccines, but it was 6 shots, but it was actually 11 different vaccines because of the combination vaccines. And it was immediate. I took in a walking, talking, beautiful blonde hair, blue-eyed baby boy that was above the curve. And within a day, within hours, he had the fever. And within a day or two, he was completely gone. No talking, couldn't walk, failure to thrive, the whole 9 yards.
I hope you don't mind if I share this with you, but I actually have kind of a similar story. I had missed a doctor's appointment for my daughter when she was 2, and I took her in and they wanted to catch her up on vaccinations, and they gave her 5 shots at one time, but it was actually, I'm not even familiar with exactly how many vaccines it was, but it was definitely more than 5. And she seemed to cry for probably 3 days after that. She had a fever. She was inconsolable. And after that, I mean, like you said, she was walking, she was talking, she was fine. And then we got all of these shots given to her, and she was just like a different child. And I actually wanted to ask you, I hope this is an okay question to ask, have you had to deal with the guilt on that? Because I feel guilty all the time when I think about my daughter. I didn't know any better, and I know you didn't know any better either, but it's like, how do you deal with that?
Well, people deal with it in different ways. The guilt's a huge thing with me and my wife. And that's why I do my radio program. That's why I've got the website. That's why I do my writing. I write for InfoWars at times. I'm constantly an activist, not just an advocate for my child, but an activist. And I'm kind of like paying it forward. I feel so guilty for my lack of responsibility that I took for my child. And I'm trying to pay it forward by helping to save maybe a couple more children along the way, as I'm also doing biomedical treatment and homeopathic treatment for my son to try to get him better. And he's doing wonderful now. But I think that's where my passion comes from with my radio program and everything else, is trying to pay it forward and trying to deal with some of that guilt, because it's guilty. Because when you think about the fact that parents will spend more time researching a mattress or a crib or a car seat,
I know it.
But they won't research the vaccines because it's that blind trust we have
had it too.
In the medical industrial complex.
I had that blind trust too, and I think about that sometimes. At the time, I did what I was told. I thought it was the right thing to do, and sometimes when I think about that, I get pretty emotional. But I really appreciate what you've done and what you are doing, and I think what you're doing it really is like a blessing in disguise. It's the silver lining that you're able to come out and educate people and help them like you are. It's really, really important work.
Well, and I'll tell you, Melissa, if I can turn into the interviewer for just one question, would you be where you are right now if it hadn't been for your daughter's vaccine injury?
I would say that's probably very accurate. It definitely got me to start distrusting blindly, trusting the government as I had been doing. It definitely got me to start reading books. I started reading so many books after that, and I felt so angry for such a long time. I felt so duped, and there are still days when I look at my daughter and I feel nothing but just anger, and it definitely, it definitely pushes me to do what I do now. So definitely, yeah. I was actually going to ask you, switching gears just a little bit, do you think that there's a prevalence of people who are just really unaware about the fact that they can do exemptions? Because we get calls here at our show all the time from parents who say, no, it's mandatory. And I know even in Missouri, where we used to live, my daughter's school used to send us forms all the time saying, this is mandatory. If you don't give your child this shot, your child cannot attend school. And they really make you think that you have no other option.
Well, I actually have a horse ranch here in Missouri now. And that's where I'm calling from right now. And it comes to being an educated parent, because the school system where I live, they'll tell all the other parents it's mandatory. But the fact of the matter is, with me, what they do is the school nurse calls. I've got 3 kids in the school system, and the school nurse will call and say, I'm sending the exemption form. All you have to do is sign it and send it back. So it's a matter of parents being educated. There is no mandatory vaccines right now. They are mandated, but many states have, all states have at least a medical exemption. Mississippi and West Virginia are the only states that have only a medical exemption. The other states have either medical, religious, or philosophical.
Right. Actually, I have a story about that too that I'd like to share with you. When living in Missouri, I went to get the exemption forms. They actually put you through a whole process, at least at the county I was in, where they sent a nurse out with pamphlets to try and inform me of what a bad parent I was being, and she got into an argument with me over it, and it took me an hour just to get that form. Have you heard of stories like that?
Oh, I've heard stories, and that's where my advocacy comes in. I've got parents that call me all the time, and literally, when I walk in the door, the school officials and the health department officials throughout this area of my state and Western Illinois cringe because they know they're done because I know the law. And
Good.
That's
Good.
really what it is. I've offered with any parent within a 50-mile radius of my house, if any parent wants me to walk into a pediatrician's office with them or walk into the school system with them, I'll be happy to do it free of charge.
Oh man, I hope people take you up on that. Actually, I was going to mention also recently, I know in New Jersey, Senate Bill 1759 they passed saying that they need to place a greater burden on parents to clarify their valid reason for exempting their child, further defining and restricting what the definition of a valid reason even is. Like they're trying to basically make it impossible for parents to get vaccine exemptions there in New Jersey. And actually, I've read stories too where they make parents testify. They actually go to a court and make them testify that they have a religious right or what their valid reason is. And I guess other states are actually following suit. Have you heard of that?
Well, absolutely, because actually that New Jersey law that they're trying to pass is just mimicking the law that's already passed in California and Washington State. AB 2109, I believe it is, in California. I've covered that on my radio show. And if you want a personal belief exemption, which California kind of ties up the religious and philosophical all into one, which is called a personal belief exemption. Now you have to go to a doctor and let them decide whether your personal belief is good enough.
Wonderful.
And to me, that is just, that's an affront to the Constitution. But there's so many states out there that could care less about the Constitution anyways. It's just knowing your rights. It's saying, whatever my religion is, it's freedom of religion. It's not freedom of being a Baptist or a Catholic or a Methodist or a Jew or a follower of Islam. It is simply my freedom of any religion I pick. And it's none of your business what my religion is. And that's the way you've got to confront them.
Definitely, I agree with you. Well, in closing, do you have any other advice for parents out there when it comes to these vaccines and vaccine exemptions?
Know your rights. There's plenty of books out there. There's plenty of, internet articles and websites out there. Know your rights. Know what you're putting into them. Spend at least double the time that you spend on what kind of baby food you're going to give them, what kind of crib you're going to buy or car seat you're going to buy. Spend at least double that looking into the vaccines. Do not trust the medical professionals because they don't know anything either. The ones on the ground, the pediatricians out there, I guarantee you I could just bury any of them when it comes to issues about vaccines, because I know what I'm talking about, and every parent should do the same.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, Kurt. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Melissa. I appreciate it.
I think we should take Kurt's warnings pretty seriously. I mean, he's right. People spend a lot more time researching the television set they're going to buy than they do researching these vaccines that our government tells us we need to shoot our kids up with, which have a much farther reaching implications. It's terrible. So we definitely need to take what he said seriously and look into that. I implore everybody to do so. Anyway, when we get back from break, we're going to air the conclusion to the 5-part series between pharmacist Ben Fuchs and Dr. Joel Wallach. And so stick around. As Skynet continues to rise, most Americans have no idea the arsenal their own government is prepared to use against them. Walking weapons and unmanned drones that will find their way to U.S. soil if they haven't already. But the future is not written in stone. Join InfoWars for the first ever drone mob December 8th at Zilker Park in Austin, Texas. This family-friendly event is to inform the public of the weapons that target us. Bring your own drones and spy planes as we make the statement that we don't want our weapons turned against us. Be there at 11 a.m. There will be some amazing giveaways and even a video contest. So bring your camera, because whoever films the best drone video at the event and posts it up on YouTube will receive 1,000 Federal Reserve notes. And be sure to use the hashtag DroneMob on Twitter and visit Infowars.com for more details.
Alex Jones here with some very important breaking news. The latest edition of InfoWars magazine, December 2012, is out. And no, we don't really cover people that think that the world is going to end on December 21st. We are predicting the world will not end. But we are predicting that the end of our free republic may take place if people don't wake up and get aggressive and angry and speak out against what's happening. This man wants your guns. That is the cover of the 60-page glossy magazine, jam-packed with information and the truth. And you know what they say, the truth will set you free. You can buy the magazine at cost in bulk in groups of 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, right up to 100 to give everyone you know. And believe me, people will open this up. It is full of unbelievably powerful graphics, cartoons. We've got artist profiles on patriots out there that are exposing the globalist, and it's got several articles breaking down the facts that Obama and his globalist controllers want to disarm the American people and are going to try to ban all semi-autos. The facts are in this magazine, and this is the most important of the 4 issues we have ever put out. And when you do sign up for the subscription, you don't just get 12 in the mail. When supplies last of the previous issues, we will put back issues like the November issue, Zombies, Are You a Zombie? Breaking down how television has put the general public into a trance-like state. You will get that when you sign up for the next 12 issues in December of 2012. My goal is to expose the globalist and to win the info war so it doesn't become a physical war. We've seen Hillary Clinton saying that they're winning the info war. Top globalist Zbigniew Brzezinski says that nationalism is growing and that people are waking up against outside forces because of populism and alternative media. This particular issue of the magazine is the one to give friends and family. It's the one to put under the tree or in the stocking. It's the one to leave at church. It's the one to leave at the dentist office. This is the one, the December issue of InfoWars magazine with Ron Paul, the attack on the Second Amendment, the police state, the GMO takeover. It's all there and all available at InfoWarsStore.com or by calling 888-253-3139. Get your subscription or buy the magazines in bulk today. I'm Alex Jones signing off for Infowars.com. Until next time, remember, if you're watching this, if you're receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
All right, we talked to our friend Aaron just a few minutes ago, and he's an amazing testimony to everything you talk about. Lost 100 pounds. Everybody wants to lose weight. Obesity is ridiculous.
We're the number one obese nation in the world.
We're the starving obese. We are. It's crazy what's out there. By 2030, they estimate 50%. Not overweight, Doc. Obese. Okay. So how can we use the Mighty 90 to lose some weight, especially now with Christmas and Thanksgiving? How can folks use the Mighty 90 to lose some weight?
Well, again, pharmacists, we're the number one obese nation in the world. We spend more money for healthcare than all the nations of the world combined, yet we're the number one obese nation in the world. What's going on here? What that tells you, you don't have to be too bright to stand back and say, how could we be the number one obese nation in the world? What does it say about the level of understanding of obesity by our doctors and our government? They know nothing. Otherwise, we'd be number 204, right? We'd be the thinnest people on earth and the healthiest. But we're number one obesity because they know nothing about obesity. In their theory, you know what I'm saying? In their theory, obesity is caused from lack of exercise and a disease of excess. You're eating too much.
Right.
Because they think that we're like an oven. They think if you eat carbohydrates at only 4.5 calories.
Calories in, calories out.
Exactly. 4.5 calories per gram as opposed to 9 calories per gram for fat. You can't buy fat. It's fat-free, low fat, no fat.
But we're still fat.
We're still obese. Okay, and that's because it is not a disease of excess and it's not a disease of lack of exercise. When you're obese or even overweight, it's a disease of deficiency. You're deficient in a couple of minerals.
So obesity is actually a deficiency disease?
Yes. Okay. Obesity is a deficiency disease of a couple of minerals.
All right.
And the symptom of the deficiency of these couple of minerals is the munchies.
Ah, so you can cure the munchies by using these?
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh. So what are the minerals?
Well, I won't tell you yet. Because if I tell everybody, what I want them to do is get that book, Hell's Kitchen, and read the whole story.
Okay, so it's just a couple of minerals that will take care of the munchies.
Well, there's two minerals. If you have those deficiency of those two minerals, you're going to be one of these people who weighs 600, 800, 1,200 pounds. But any mineral deficiency, not vitamin, you can be deficient in all the vitamins you want and you won't gain weight.
Huh, it's mineral deficiency.
It's a mineral deficiency. In horses, it's called cribbing. They chew on the fence.
Right. How about pica? Is that what pica is?
Pica.
Pica, yeah.
And little kids will eat dirt and stuff like that. Yep.
Yeah.
That's because of a mineral deficiency.
Huh.
Only.
So when people have the munchies, their body is the body's wisdom is let's go get some minerals, and they're trying to find these minerals.
You're driving you to eat something to find the minerals.
Yeah.
Okay.
So using the Mighty 90 and using these minerals will take care of the munchies and take care of the weight loss.
Suddenly now, if you just get on the Alex pack, take the 90 essential nutrients,
right,
you'll lose 10, 15, 20 pounds in a month.
We see this all the time.
Yeah, without even thinking.
Yeah.
Because suddenly now, your portions are automatically get smaller because you're tired of throwing food away.
Yeah.
And you're not going to eat between meals. You'll take some snacks and think, I don't even know why I took this. I'm not even really that hungry, but out of habit, you're doing it. And it doesn't take you long to figure out I don't need to do this anymore.
So dieting isn't even hard. Once you get the nutrients that you need.
I wouldn't even use that term.
Yeah.
What I would do is talk about portion control as opposed to dieting.
Right.
Because you don't even have to think about portion control because when the pica and the munchies goes away, portion control is just sort of self-regulating, right? Now, to speed it up, we actually have what we call the Slender FX Weight Management System, which has a meal replacer in it, which is 80 calories and no sugar, so it's great for diabetics who need to lose weight. It's only 80 calories. You could have 2 of those meals a day. I like to throw in a couple of eggs and make it with water. You're only going to get like a 250 calorie meal, so 2 of those is 500 calories. You're going to have a 300 or 500 calorie meal. You're down below 1,000 calories.
And you have all your nutrients.
You have all your nutrients, right? Because you're still going to take your 90 essential nutrients. You're going to take your Alex pack. Even though you've cut your calories, your portion control is way down here. But you're still taking your 90 essential nutrients, and you're going to lose weight.
We see it all the time. In fact, that's the most dramatic example of how powerful this stuff is the weight loss.
Yes.
And the weight loss shouldn't even necessarily be the target of what you're looking for. That's like
It just happens.
It just happens.
Yes.
It happens on its own.
Now, if somebody needs to lose 25, 50, 75, 100 pounds or more, then we throw in what we call ASAP. I like to add ASAP.
Yeah.
ASAP is an acronym for as slim as possible.
Right.
But I like to say ASAP because it's as slim as possible, as soon as possible.
Yeah,
now, exactly. And so what I like to do, if you need to lose 50 pounds or less, you put 1 dropper full under your tongue of this liquid. What it is, it's amino acids, which is the raw material for your pituitary to make certain hormones.
Like growth hormone.
No, like HC.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah. And so, don't tell anybody.
I won't say anything about that. It's a very important hormone, though.
Yeah, and so instead of going and getting prescription injections, you do this yourself.
Right.
And you're going to lose, a quarter of a pound, half a pound, 2 pounds a day, depending on how you are with that portion control piece, right? And just like you said, Aaron lost 100 pounds. We have thousands of people every month.
I see it. It's amazing. Yep. It's absolutely amazing.
And I see it around the world. People are just, this product's going around the world now.
Yeah.
And
but they're adding years to their life. They're decreasing the likelihood of arthritis and degenerative diseases and cancer, God forbid.
Cancer, heart disease.
All of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's a combination of the 90 essential nutrients. The Alex Pack is a combination of the super juices that's in the BTT, the Beyond Tangerine, 115 super juices, antioxidants fending off the bad guys.
Magnesium.
Well, it's all in there.
Yeah. Well, the OsteoFX Plus, we haven't even talked about that one. That's a wonderful product.
Well, it's part of the Alex Pack.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all in there. And so at any rate, obesity goes away very quickly. But when you say, right now they're predicting 50% obesity by the year 2030, that tells you that they don't know what to do. Because if they knew what to do, they'd say, okay, right now we're 36% obesity.
But it'll be
Here's
less.
what we do.
Yeah.
And by 2030, it's going to be 20%.
They don't know what to do.
They have no earthly idea because their theory has failed them.
Yeah.
And they cannot believe it's a disease of deficiency. In their little pea brains, they cannot believe that it's a disease of deficiency.
Well, they're still operating that steam engine mentality where you put the coal in and you get a fire, and they don't understand that the body's not a steam engine. There's a whole, it's a metabolic system. It's a chemistry system. Okay,
now, the spin-off of that, of course, they say that people who are obese, they have a higher rate of diabetes. Yep. That's this sort of cousin disease here.
Right.
They run together, but not all the time. You can have people who are obese don't have diabetes, but they do tend to run together. And we've known for 70 years that diabetes, type 2 diabetes, which makes up 98% of the diabetic population, is a simple mineral deficiency disease again. It's not genetic in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
It is not genetic in any way, shape, or form, for emphasis, right?
Right.
It is a simple mineral deficiency disease. And I have to tell you this story. You'll appreciate this, pharmacist man. There's a fellow out there by the name of Jerry Murphy. He's an owner of one of the largest, I think it's the third largest medical laboratory in America. He services 7,000 hospitals and tens of thousands of doctors' private offices every day with his medical laboratory. This guy's got 3 PhDs.
Like a diagnostic
diagnostic laboratories. Yeah, they take specimens and send them to the laboratory. They send the results back to the doctor, right? I mean, this guy has 3 literally, he has 3 PhDs.
He doesn't have
in
diabetes.
Medical. Oh, yeah. He had terrible brittle diabetes. I mean, his blood sugar is off the chart, even with injectable insulin.
And he knows about all this stuff.
Well, he has access to the finest endocrinologists, the cutting edge of research on what you do for diabetes, all the drugs. I mean, he knows everything about diabetes the medical system knows. Well, a mutual friend introduces us. And because I've been talking about diabetes for 25, 30 years, right? And so I said, well, yes, sir, I can help you. I can get your A1C hemoglobin down below 5 within a couple of months. I can get your blood sugar down below 100 without medication. You'll be an ex-diabetic. And he looks at me like, oh, yeah, right.
Right.
He says, who are you? So I had to introduce myself a little bit. He said, well, I don't believe you. So tell you what, give me a test. I mean, give it a try. You have everything to gain, nothing to lose. You're not being successful at what you're doing. He said, okay, I'll give you 90 days, Wally. He says, if you can get my A1C hemoglobin down from 8.9 down below 5 within 90 days, if you can get my blood sugar consistently down below 100 without medication within 90 days, I'll be your best friend.
Wow.
I'll fly around my jet plane. I will show up spontaneously at meetings you won't even know. I'll just appear and give my testimony. I will brag about you. I will put every one of my employees on your program, and I'll stop all my insurance.
And you knew you could do it. You knew you
I was self-insured. Well, I've been doing it every day for 35 years. And so he says, but I'll tell you what, if you fail, if in 90 days you haven't gotten rid of my diabetes, I will hire somebody whose only job is to go around every place where you're going to give a talk and tell everybody in the newspapers and be interviewed and tell everybody what a quack you are.
Right.
I said, okay, Jerry, let's do it. Let's go for it. And he was kind of shocked that I didn't want to negotiate, right, and equivocate. Right. I said, let's do it. Well, to make a long story short, in 2 months' time, following exactly what I told him to do, and he was very good, he was impeccable in doing exactly what I told him, his A1C hemoglobin dropped from 8.9 down to 4.3, and his blood sugar went down to 62 without medication.
That's amazing. And you know what? It's the way you put it and the way you frame it, it's easy. It's easy. And I want everybody to understand this is easy. If you have diabetes, if you have a blood sugar problem, and you've been told you're going to be on insulin the rest of your life and you're going to be on drugs the rest of your life, this is easy because it's a metabolic problem. And once you change your body's chemistry, it can't help but follow. Now, that gets us to my personal favorite product, and we all have our favorite products, but my personal favorite product is the Sweeties.
Yes.
And that's because
that's the secret sauce.
That's the secret sauce, right?
It's for type 2 diabetes.
The chromium and the vanadium, and these two minerals are so amazing for blood sugar. Real quick, if you could just tell the listeners a little bit about chromium especially, but a little bit about vanadium.
Well, these two minerals have been known again for 70 years to support your body's ability to metabolize carbohydrates and fats and sugars at the cellular level, support healthy blood sugar by sensitizing your cell membranes to insulin. That's what they do. They're sort of the cofactor necessary so your cell wall can recognize insulin,
right.
So it can speak the language of insulin. People who have type 2 diabetes, contrary to what doctors tell their patients, when you have type 2 diabetes, you're making as much as 10 times more insulin than a non-diabetic.
It's resistance to the insulin.
Exactly. So the insulin level is going up because your body keeps trying,
right.
keeps pumping out more, saying, why aren't you responding? Well, that's because you're missing that key. It's kind of like the combination on a combination lock. And if you take this along with the 90 essential nutrients,
right.
by themselves, you'll get okay results. But if you take those two by themselves, you'll be unhappy. You say, well, that Wallach thing didn't work. You must take them along with the 90 essential nutrients.
The B vitamins, the vitamin C, and
all 90 essential nutrients.
Magnesium, right.
In their theory, you know what I'm saying? In their theory, obesity is caused from lack of exercise and a disease of excess. You're eating too much.
Right.
Because they think that we're like an oven. They think if you eat carbohydrates at only 4.5 calories.
Calories in, calories out.
Exactly. 4.5 calories per gram as opposed to 9 calories per gram for fat. You can't buy fat. It's fat-free, low fat, no fat.
Right. But we're still fat.
We're still obese. Okay, and that's because it is not a disease of excess and it's not a disease of lack of exercise. When you're obese or even overweight, it's a disease of deficiency. You're deficient in a couple of minerals.
So obesity is actually a deficiency disease?
Yes. Okay. Obesity deficiency is a disease of a couple of minerals.
All right.
And the symptom of the deficiency of these couple of minerals is the munchies.
Ah, so you can cure the munchies by using these?
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh. So what are the minerals?
Well, I won't tell you yet. Because if I tell everybody, what I want them to do is get that book, Hell's Kitchen, and read the whole story.
Okay, so it's just a couple of minerals that will take care of the munchies.
Well, there's two minerals. If you have those deficiency of those two minerals, you're going to be one of these people who weighs 600, 800, 1,200 pounds. But any mineral deficiency, not vitamin, you can be deficient in all the vitamins you want and you won't gain weight.
Huh, it's mineral deficiency.
It's a mineral deficiency. In horses, it's called cribbing. They chew on the fence.
Right. How about pica? Is that what pica is?
Pica.
Pica, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And little kids will eat dirt and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah. That's because of a mineral deficiency.
Huh.
Only.
So when people have the munchies, their body's wisdom is let's go get some minerals, and they're trying to find these minerals.
You're driving you to eat something to find the minerals.
Yeah.
Okay.
So using the Mighty 90 and using these minerals will take care of the munchies and take care of the weight loss.
Suddenly now, if you just get on the Alex pack, take the 90 essential nutrients,
right.
You'll lose 10, 15, 20 pounds in a month.
We see this all the time.
Yeah, without even thinking.
Yeah.
Because suddenly now, your portions are automatically get smaller because you're tired of throwing food away.
Yeah.
And you're not going to eat between meals. You'll take some snacks and think, I don't even know why I took this. I'm not even really that hungry, but out of habit, you're doing it. And it doesn't take you long to figure out I don't need to do this anymore.
So dieting isn't even hard. Once you get the nutrients that you need.
I wouldn't even use that term.
Yeah.
What I would do is talk about portion control as opposed to dieting.
Right.
Because you don't even have to think about portion control because when the pica and the munchies goes away, portion control is just sort of self-regulating, right? Now, to speed it up, we actually have what we call the Slender FX Weight Management System, which has a meal replacer in it, which is 80 calories and no sugar. So it's great for diabetics who need to lose weight. It's only 80 calories. You could have 2 of those meals a day. I like to throw in a couple of eggs and make it with water. You're only going to get like a 250 calorie meal. So 2 of those is 500 calories. You're going to have a 300 or 500 calorie meal. You're down below 1,000 calories.
And you have all your nutrients.
You have all your nutrients, right? Because you're still going to take your 90 essential nutrients. You're going to take your Alex pack, even though you've cut your calories, your portion control is way down here. But you're still taking your 90 essential nutrients, and you're going to lose weight.
We see it all the time. In fact, that's the most dramatic example of how powerful this stuff is the weight loss.
Yes.
And the weight loss shouldn't even necessarily be the target of what you're looking for. That's like
It just happens.
It just happens.
Yes.
It happens on its own.
Now, if somebody needs to lose 25, 50, 75, 100 pounds or more, then we throw in what we call ASAP. I like to add ASAP.
Yeah.
ASAP is an acronym for as slim as possible.
Right.
But I like to say ASAP because it's as slim as possible, as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Now, exactly. And so what I like to do, if you need to lose 50 pounds or less, you put 1 dropper full under your tongue of this liquid. What it is, it's amino acids, which is the raw material for your pituitary to make certain hormones.
Like growth hormone.
No, like HC.
Oh, okay, all right, all right.
Yeah. And so, don't tell anybody.
I won't say anything about that. It's a very important hormone, though.
Yeah, and so, instead of going and getting prescription injections,
right.
you do this yourself.
Right.
And you're going to lose, you know, a quarter of a pound, half a pound, 2 pounds a day, depending on how you are with that portion control piece, right? And just like you said, Aaron lost 100 pounds. We have thousands of people every month.
I see it. It's amazing. Yep. It's absolutely amazing.
And I see it around the world. People are just, this product's going around the world now.
Yeah.
And
but they're adding years to their life. They're decreasing the likelihood of arthritis and degenerative diseases and cancer, God forbid.
Cancer, heart disease.
All of that. All of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's a combination of the 90 essential nutrients. The Alex Pack is a combination of the super juices that's in the BTT, the Beyond Tangerine, 115 super juices, antioxidants fending off the bad guys.
Magnesium.
Well, it's all in there.
Yeah. Well, the OsteoFX Plus, we haven't even talked about that one. That's a wonderful product.
Well, it's part of the Alex Pack.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all in there. And so, at any rate, obesity goes away very quickly. But when you say, right now they're predicting 50% obesity by the year 2030, that tells you that they don't know what to do. Because if they knew what to do, they'd say, okay, right now we're 36% obesity.
But it'll be
Here's
less.
What we do.
Yeah.
And by 2030, it's going to be 20%.
They don't know what to do.
They have no earthly idea because their theory has failed them.
Yeah.
And they cannot believe it's a disease of deficiency. In their little pea brains, they cannot believe that it's a disease of deficiency.
Well, they're still operating that steam engine mentality where you put the coal in and you get a fire, and they don't understand that the body's not a steam engine. There's a whole, it's a metabolic system. It's a chemistry system. Okay,
now, the spin-off of that, of course, they say that people who are obese, they have a higher rate of diabetes. Yep. That's his sort of cousin disease here.
Right.
They run together, but not all the time. You can have people who are obese don't have diabetes, but they do tend to run together. And we've known for 70 years that diabetes, type 2 diabetes, which makes up 98% of the diabetic population, is a simple mineral deficiency disease again. It's not genetic in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
It is not genetic in any way, shape, or form, for emphasis, right?
Right.
It is a simple mineral deficiency disease. And I have to tell you this story. You'll appreciate this, pharmacist man. There's a fellow out there by the name of Jerry Murphy. He's an owner of one of the largest, I think it's the third largest medical laboratory in America. He services 7,000 hospitals and tens of thousands of doctors' private offices every day with his medical laboratory. This guy's got 3 PhDs.
Like a diagnostic
Oh, diagnostic laboratories. Yeah, they take specimens and send them to the laboratory. They send the results back to the doctor, right? I mean, this guy has 3 literally has 3 PhDs.
He doesn't have
in
diabetes.
Medical. Oh, yeah. He had terrible brittle diabetes. I mean, his blood sugar is off the chart, even with injectable insulin.
And he knows about all this stuff.
Well, he has access to the finest endocrinologists, the cutting edge of research on what you do for diabetes, all the drugs. I mean, he knows everything about diabetes the medical system knows. Well, a mutual friend introduces us. And because I've been talking about diabetes for 25, 30 years, right? And so I said, well, yes, sir, I can help you. I can get your A1C hemoglobin down below 5 within a couple of months. I can get your blood sugar down below 100 without medication. You'll be an ex-diabetic. And he looks at me like, oh, yeah, right.
Right.
He says, who are you? So I had to introduce myself a little bit. He said, well, I don't believe you. So tell you what, give me a test. I mean, give it a try. You have everything to gain, nothing to lose. You're not being successful at what you're doing. He said, okay, I'll give you 90 days, Wally. He says, if you can get my A1C hemoglobin down from 8.9 down below 5 within 90 days, you can get my blood sugar consistently down below 100 without medication within 90 days, I'll be your best friend.
Wow.
I'll fly around my jet plane. I will show up spontaneously at meetings you won't even know. I'll just appear and give my testimony. I will brag about you. I will put every one of my employees on your program, and I'll stop all my insurance.
And you knew you could do it. You knew you
I was self-insured. Well, I've been doing it every day for 35 years. And so he says, but I'll tell you what, if you fail, if in 90 days you haven't gotten rid of my diabetes, I will hire somebody whose only job is to go around every place where you're going to give a talk and tell everybody in the newspapers and be interviewed and tell everybody what a quack you are.
Right.
I said, okay, Jerry, let's do it. Let's go for it. And he was kind of shocked that I didn't want to negotiate, right, and equivocate. Right. I said, let's do it. Well, to make a long story short, in 2 months' time, following exactly what I told him to do, and he was very good, he was impeccable in doing exactly what I told him, his A1C hemoglobin dropped from 8.9 down to 4.3, and his blood sugar went down to 62 without medication.
That's amazing. And you know what? it's the way you put it and the way you frame it, it's easy. It's easy. And I want everybody to understand this is easy. If you have diabetes, if you have a blood sugar problem and you've been told you're going to be on insulin the rest of your life and you're going to be on drugs the rest of your life, this is easy because it's a metabolic problem, and once you change your body's chemistry, it can't help but follow. Now, that gets us to my personal favorite product, and we all have our favorite products, but my personal favorite product is the Sweeties.
Yes.
And that's because
that's the secret sauce.
That's the secret sauce, right?
It's for type 2 diabetes.
The chromium and the vanadium, and these two minerals are so amazing for blood sugar. Real quick, if you could just tell the listeners a little bit about chromium especially, but a little bit about vanadium.
Well, these two minerals have been known again for 70 years to support your body's ability to metabolize carbohydrates and fats and sugars at the cellular level, support healthy blood sugar by sensitizing your cell membranes to insulin. That's what they do. They're sort of the cofactor necessary so your cell wall can recognize insulin,
right.
So it can speak the language of insulin. People who have type 2 diabetes, contrary to what doctors tell their patients, when you have type 2 diabetes, you're making as much as 10 times more insulin than a non-diabetic.
It's resistance to the insulin.
Exactly. So the insulin level is going up because your body keeps trying, keeps pumping out more, saying, why aren't you responding? Well, that's because you're missing that key. It's kind of like the combination on a combination lock. And if you take this along with the 90 essential nutrients, by themselves you'll get okay results. But if you take those two by themselves, you'll be unhappy. So, well, that Wallach thing didn't work. You must take them along with the 90 essential nutrients.
The B vitamins, the vitamin C. And
all 90 essential nutrients.
Magnesium, right.
All the amino acids, everything. You cannot do it in an isolated way.
That's right.
Okay? I don't want people to get the impression they can just take those two minerals and their diabetes is going to go away. No. Those are the secret sauce that goes along with the basic program, and then it will work every time.
There's actually a component in the body called the glucose tolerance factor, which chromium and I think vanadium might be part of. Are part of that glucose tolerance factor.
But then it's something your body puts together when you have those nutrients, right? Just like your bones. What's the secret sauce for bones? Well, minerals, including phosphorus and calcium
not just calcium.
Magnesium. Well, no, your bones require all 90 essential nutrients.
90 essential
exactly.
nutrients.
So if you just take calcium, you'll still get osteoporosis and fractures and arthritis.
That's such an important point. You can't say that enough. It is the entire spectrum of essential nutrients, and that's why the term the mighty 90 is so important. It's not just one nutrient. As important as chromium is, and as important as vanadium is, and as important as calcium is, it's the entire spectrum of nutrients that you need.
You cannot make an angel food cake with McCormick's liquid vanilla extract by itself.
Right. You can get an angel food crepe, as you said.
Well, you wouldn't even get a crepe, but just the extract, right? But we can make a town diabetes-free in 60 days.
Isn't that amazing? Diabetes is probably one of the easiest things to reverse. And you know what's interesting is you could be a hero so fast when you get people like this guy you're talking about, Jerry. You can be a hero so fast simply by putting people on these kinds of essential nutrients. And how much death and destruction and just nightmares does something like diabetes cause in this country?
Well, next to obesity is the biggest single cost factor in medicine today. 1/3 of Americans, 30% of Americans have type 2 diabetes.
And how many pre-diabetics?
Well, that's scary, isn't it?
Right?
Another 1/3.
Right? So you're talking 2/3 of a country that spends more money than any other.
All nations combined.
Combined, right? Yeah. We spend more money than any other country in the history of the planet.
All nations combined, not any country. All nations.
Ever in history, and we are the sickest culture in the history of the planet. And something as simple as supplementing with nutrition, making sure that you're eating correctly.
Staying away from the bad things.
Staying away from the bad things can make such a huge difference. It's been such an honor to talk to you. I can't even tell you, Doc. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for, not just for me, but thank you on behalf of everybody that you've touched and everybody whose lives you've improved, everybody whose lives you've changed. You're just an amazing, amazing, amazing human being, and it's a pleasure.
Well, I appreciate you, pharmacist Ben. I really appreciate you because 15 years ago
you came to me. Don't tell about my pants. Don't tell.
You came to me and you said, I really want to learn from you how to use nutrition to help my patients and people I know, and you kept your word, and I'm very proud of you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much, everybody. It's been a pleasure and an honor. I'm Pharmacist Ben, Doc Wallach. Thanks a lot, buddy.
Thank you.
We'll talk again.